Games these days, they provide an experience that's completely alien to experience that anyone who was growing up 50 years ago. I use this graphic to try and sum up the fact that you have to stop saying when I was their age. You were never the age of your child, and the kind of experiences your child have, while there are going to be things you can connect and relate to, there are many experiences they have that are completely alien to you and you never experienced when you were a child. You have to face it that their childhood is different to yours. So the video game industry is powerful, it's not going away, it is worth a huge amount of money, way more than the film industry. But one of the things that really strikes, I think, what parents fail to relate to is that when your children are reading books, when they're watching television, there's a sense of identification. Even if you don't approve of the TV show they're watching, you can say, well, I know why you're watching TV and I know why you find it attractive. I know why you're reading books and why you find it attractive. But there's a sense of, I don't know why you play video games and I don't know why you find them attractive. I'm going to attempt today to give you some insight into what it is about games that makes them so compelling. When parents deal with video games, there's a tendency to go to one extreme or the other. Either to see them as incredibly harmful things that have absolutely nothing beneficial to provide or to give to society or to their children whatsoever, nothing but violence and mayhem, or at the other end, just as naive, that games are completely harmless, they're just for kids, and how bad can it really be? The truth is, we need to find a happy balance somewhere in the middle. Some games are harmless, some games are harmful, and many, maybe most games are somewhere in the middle, somewhere on this continuum. So as I mentioned, you have to accept this not going away. If you are hoping this was a fad and that maybe games are going to go the way of the dodo, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but games are bigger than they've ever been. They're worth multiple billions of US dollars, way more than the film industry is. It's not going anywhere, so you better get used to it. Here's some statistics based on the United States that may surprise you. Games are not aimed at children. They are aimed at adults, the average age being 34 years of age. So I'm 44, I'm not far off the major demographic. This is worth considering. When you ask yourself whether a game is worth playing for a child, it's highly likely the game was actually designed with an adult in mind. So when you're criticizing games, ask yourself, am I criticizing something that I'm assuming is designed for a child when actually designed for an adult? The problem here is many of the things that would be attractive to adults, like books and films, are often just not attracted to children at all, so you don't have the same problem. But with video games, often the games that are designed for adults, that are compelling for adults, are just as compelling for children, and therein lies our problem. Right off the bat, let me state clearly, I am a gamer, I am biased, I clearly am passionate about gaming, I love gaming, it's a hobby of mine that I enjoy and I'm proud of, though I often have to feel like I'm made to feel like I need to be ashamed of it in some way, but I'm not, and I don't see why I should be. Here's another pastime, another form of gaming, which has been around for a long time, and I would argue has a lot more respect in many parents' minds. They see chess as a positive engagement. Oh, my child's playing chess, they'll say. I'm so pleased. They'll positively encourage it because somehow they see chess as being a good thing, good for you, and video games as being bad for you. Whereas my contention that that's not a fair comparison to make. I found this quote, I was trying to sort of get to the sense of what makes gaming the kind of thing that parents and that many adults encourage. And I think if we look at this description, we can see that these are valid. Chess is a powerful form of playing because it encourages these incredibly important mental faculties. I would contend, though, that you can say exactly the same thing about video games. They do all of these things. Concentration, critical thinking. I'm not going to read the list to you, you can read it yourself. But trust me when I tell you that as a video gamer of many years, I experienced the exact same mental challenge, or what we call cognitive demand, through playing video games as many people experience when they're playing chess. Because ultimately games are about problem solving. They're about problem solving on scales that are unimaginable to someone who's never played a video game. But trust me when I tell you that the sheer variety of problems you face in a video game is amazing. This is a definition of intelligence, not a definition of a video game. However, again, I would say that if you were to take away intelligence and replace that with games, you would see a scenario where this defines what a video game is. In a video game, you have to think quickly, learn quickly, act quickly, and you don't have a chance to stop. You can pause the game, but the game won't have moved forward. You're going to have to actually react in real time to what's happening and think on your feet. It's an incredibly demanding situation. This is probably my most favourite game of all time. The Legend of Zelda, one of the most acclaimed games ever made as a series of games. Effectively, though, each of these games is like a puzzle box. Which is interesting reading this article from oneup.com. I think it was a very intelligently written post. Ultimately, they compare a Zelda video game level to a puzzle box. And that is not just true of Zelda. Many of these games, you are effectively plunged into a three-dimensional puzzle, one within which you cannot escape or complete until you've actually fulfilled all the challenges. Now, there's no grading here. You either complete the game or you don't complete the game, which leads to other problems. This is a typical scenario where the character Link is faced with a gargantuan boss creature. In a poorly designed game, a game that does not receive critical accolades, the main character could just basically thrash at the thing with a sword until it's dead. But in the greatest games, in games like this, that's never going to be a satisfactory solution. You're going to have to look at the creature, examine it, and try out a whole bunch of different tools, different attack strategies, possibly even use the environment to help you defeat the creature. Most of these situations, the boss fight will actually have several phases in which you have to change your attack strategy in order to be able to survive. And of course, if you don't survive, that's it. There is no grey, there is just you cannot continue playing this game until you've figured out how to defeat this creature. Each boss fight is in many ways an intricate puzzle to solve. In this case, this character has his hands crossed across the chest. You have to find a way to trick it into opening its hands, and then you have to be quick to be able to attack where its weak point is. Even that requires a bit of figuring out. That's not just true of Zelda. This is an incredible game called Batman. There are boss fights and challenges throughout this game. This is a particularly clever game called Portal. I can recommend this to any parent without any concern because there's no swearing and there's no violence, there's no blood. It's a phenomenally challenging game. It's very clever. In this game, you can't shoot anything because your gun just opens portals in space. In order to defeat this boss, you have to effectively direct its own weaponry back against itself. So you shoot a portal in the floor and a portal in the wall, which enables you to effectively use it to attack it. That's just a little sampling of the kind of cognitive demand, the kind of challenge that children face in an attempt to kind of complete these games. Effectively, you can think of video games as thinking through problems.
What about gamers that could solve problems that experts can't solve? Last September, the gamers of Foldit solved the three-dimensional structure of the retroviral protease that contributes to AIDS in rhesus monkeys. Now, understanding this structure is very important for developing treatments. For 15 years, it was unsolved in the scientific community. The gamers of Foldit solved it in 15 days. Now, they were able to do so by working together. They were able to work together because they're connected by the internet and other.
So, this is from a TED Talk in which this lady from DARPA explains that they've actually now moved to a point where they've been leveraging the considerable mass intelligence of gamers to solve real-life problems. Problems that scientists couldn't solve, gamers solved. I think there's an essential element to consider here. Gamers are a demographic who actively choose cognitively demanding activities for fun. That's their idea of a good time. Set me a challenging situation and leave me to try and solve it. This is what they do for enjoyment. So to dismiss gamers as these vacuous, violent thugs is utterly missing the point. We should be celebrating video gaming, not condemning it. I know this is one example, and I'm not going to pretend that this is a commonplace situation. It's just one example of how the incredible capability of gamers can actually be used for good. I'd like to think that this will increase in the future, but to say that when children are playing video games is a waste of time, I think underestimates the fact that these children are building problem-solving capabilities that are actually potentially revolutionary.